love you.
It's Courtney. Welcome back to the Biblio Style. If you're new here, thanks for stopping by. And for returning subscribers, I'm glad to hang out with you once again. So I thought that I would talk a little bit about what I read in June and what I'm reading in July. And I know this is going up a little bit late. It's like first week of July. It's the 6th. So yeah, better late than never. So per usual, I have notes. In June, I read 2 books for the Queer Blackathon hosted by Jessie at Bowties and Books, Lauren from the novel Lush, Francina Simone, and Mayana Reeds, and it took place June 19th through the 21st. And I read A Blade So Black by L.L. McKinney, which is kind of a retelling of Alice in Wonderland. I ended up giving this 3 stars. I thought I was going to like it more than I actually did. But I think that's more of like a me thing than the book itself. I mean, I clearly am not the target audience for YA, but I am trying to read more like fantasy and sci-fi just because it's not something that I normally gravitate to, and I want to try to kind of broaden my horizons. So yeah, I didn't hate the book. It was enjoyable. It just wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be, and I didn't love it as much as I thought it was. But it does take place in it's like modern day Atlanta. Character is Alice. She is a Black girl who is a teen. She's in high school. She lives in Atlanta, and you kind of jump between modern day Atlanta and like Wonderland, which is she's like going there to battle these monsters, which are like essentially like your dream, your like fears and your nightmares. And she, like, the purpose is to vanquish them like when they're still in Wonderland, because it becomes harder to do it when they cross over like into the real world. And because they they like feed off of like your fears and your nightmares. They're sort of responsible for a lot of stuff that's like going on in the modern world. Yeah, it's a series. I'm not sure if I'll continue with it or if it was just, like I said, me not really connecting with the book. I don't read a ton of fantasy. Like I said, I don't read a ton of YA because I'm like really old. So I don't know. I think I ended up giving it like 3.5 stars. And then the other book I read was The Cooking Gene by Michael W. Twitty. I had started this a while ago and didn't get to finish it because it was due back at the library. So I picked it up. This is a nonfiction. Michael Twitty is a food historian and a chef, and this is sort of the he like traces his roots and like the history of his family through food, and it is so good. Like, I love this book so much. I just like, I like reading nonfiction. I like history. There's lots of things about the South. There's recipes, and I think that we all every person's, I guess, experience is kind of their own, but I think, collectively as a culture, there are things that are very, very similar. And so, reading some of the stories about his family and like being in the kitchen and what food meant to them connected with me because I have a lot of those same memories. So yeah, I gave this 5 stars. I just absolutely love it. And the only other physical book I have that I read last month is Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. This is a contemporary romance, and I absolutely loved this book. Chloe Brown is a woman in her, I don't know how old she is. I'm going to say like in her 20s, maybe. Mid-20s. It takes place in London, I believe. And she comes from a well-to-do family. She is like a web developer. She does stuff with like websites and analytics and all of that stuff. But she still, at the beginning of the book, she still lives at home with her family. She suffers from like a chronic illness. And I thought the way that was handled in the book was really, really nice and interesting to see. Like, it's a part of her life, but it isn't the only thing that she is, and the way that it's addressed, particularly in the relationship that she has. I really appreciated that. And so she like has this near-death experience kind of, and she decides like it's time for her to get a life. And she decides that it's time for her to get a life. So she makes this list of things that she wants to do and sort of proceeds to check them off. One of the things is to move out and live on her own. And so when she moves into her apartment, the building superintendent is a Scotsman named Red. And yeah, so it was really sweet. It was funny. I know that I like laughed out loud in some places. There were kind of emotional moments that I didn't really expect to have. It was steamy. It was all the things, and I loved this book. And I need to go there. So there are 3 sisters. Chloe has 2 sisters, and the next book is about her sister Danny, and it's out now, and it's waiting for me at the library, so I need to go pick it up. And then I think everything else that I read was an audiobook, or I listened to audiobook. So I had 2 books on my June TBR. One of them I didn't finish. It was Gilded Wolves, and once again, I tried reading like the physical book. I tried listening to the audiobook. I did enjoy the audiobook, but not enough to continue listening to it. I just think it wasn't really my jam at this particular time. Maybe I'll revisit it later. And then I also picked up My Dark Vanessa to read. I am still reading that, and it's taken me longer than I thought it would, because it's really, really intense and like dark, and I keep having to like stop. So, and then everything else was an audiobook. So Read and Get a Life, Chloe Brown sort of started me down the rabbit hole of romance. And I like, typically my palate cleanser books are mysteries, and I haven't really been in the mood for mystery lately, or I haven't really read one that I've enjoyed. So I'm just not reading them right now, and I think maybe romance has become my palate cleanser, because I read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and well, 6 if you count Chloe Brown. So I read 3 Tessa Dare books, The Duchess Deal, The Governess Game, and When a Scot Ties the Knot. And those are historical romance. They're kind of like, there's a buzz about them right now on BookTube, and I really enjoyed all 3 of them. For historical romance, I wasn't really sure like what I was getting myself into. I was pleasantly surprised that all of the female main characters were very like progressive in their ideas, and about the kind of lives that they wanted to have. The like men in the story were also fairly progressive in their opinions about, you know, what women should or should not be doing at that time. The chemistry is also really great. I think out of the 3, my favorite maybe was The Duchess Deal. I don't know. I like The Duchess Deal and When a Scot Ties the Knot the best, and that's probably because I really enjoy like marriage of convenience kind of tropes, which those were essentially. And then I also listened to A Duke by Default by Alyssa Cole, and that is a contemporary romance. And the main character is a woman who, this was also another one that I really connected with emotionally that I didn't think I would. The main character, Portia, I think her name is, she is very smart, but she kind of like bounces around and hops from interest to interest. She has a twin sister, I believe, who it has been like their whole life branded as the smart twin, and she's like the flighty twin. And so, you know, she has a lot of, I think, self-esteem issues from that are kind of not dealt with. She takes an apprenticeship, or she gets an apprenticeship with a sword maker in Scotland, and she goes over there, and he is kind of gruff and not really sure why this is happening. I think his brother kind of set this up, and so she gets there. When she gets there, she has been watching YouTube videos, and she figures out that she has ADD. I don't know if it's ADD or ADHD in the book, but one of them. And sort of all of the things that she has beat herself up for over the years, and the things that like her parents don't really understand about her, suddenly makes sense. And I personally don't have ADHD, but I do have really bad anxiety, and I identified with that being undiagnosed for a really long time, and being really down on myself because I couldn't do things in the way that I thought that they should be done, because of the way that like my anxiety sort of manifests itself in my own life. So I really connected with that. She had, and because of that, she had kind of like a tenuous relationship with her parents, who, you know, really wanted her to be like this high achiever like her sister. So I thought that that was really good. The main character was really like well-rounded and thoughtful, and I thought that the way that it's an interracial romance, and I thought the way that that was handled was really nuanced in a way, and I really appreciated that. And once again, it was really like steamy. The love scenes were steamy if you're into that. And then I also read Rafe by Rebecca Weatherspoon, and that is another contemporary romance. The main character is a black heart surgeon. She has a set of twin girls who I think are 5. And at the beginning of the book, the nanny, the live-in nanny that she had for them just quits one day, like she leaves one day and doesn't come back. So she's in kind of a bind. Obviously she's recently divorced. She moved to LA. She doesn't really have like a support system or network. She has like a few new friends that she's made, and that's it. So she gets a recommendation for a nanny. It turns out to be a man. Okay. And so she like hires him, and sparks fly and all of that. So I really enjoyed that. Once again, it's another interracial romance, and I really liked the way that race was handled in the story. I am in an interracial marriage. My husband is white, so I'm always interested to see like how these dynamics play out in the media that I choose to consume. So yeah, that was my reading and I think I gave all of those romance books 4 stars. So it was a pretty decent reading month for me. I had been in a slump. I think I only read 3 books in May. And I think June was just a really heavy month, and instead of reading what I chose to read, I just read what I felt like reading, and it all worked out for me. And now moving on to July. So I have a mix of things that I think are just going to be fun to read, and then sort of more intense things to read. So let's start with the fun. I have Not the Girl You Marry by Andy Christopher, and I think this is, it's a romance. It's a romance, obviously. So it's like 2 people. It's sort of like How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, if you remember that movie. So there's like the main character, Hannah, who is an event planner, and she is wanting to move up in her company, but I guess she's not really like into romance and dating or whatever, but a chunk of her company's business is planning weddings, and so she really wants to like be in a committed relationship to show, I guess, her bosses that she's able to like tap into that side of herself. And then there is Jack, who has sort of been pigeonholed at his company. I'm assuming it's kind of like a BuzzFeed kind of company, and he wants to shift gears in what he is reporting about. And so, but like his like dating stuff and like quizzes or whatever are kind of really popular on their site. So he like strikes up a deal with his boss to write like one final, like his swan song is that, and it's How to Lose a Girl. So they meet, and I guess, you know, kind of sparks fly, and they sort of reconsider what it is they're doing. And so, yeah, they have like a it's like fake relationship turned real relationship. And I also really like that in romance novels. So this looks fun. The Bookish Life of Nina Hill by Abby Waxman. I have already started this book and I really enjoy it. It's more, I mean, it has romantic elements, but I guess it's more like contemporary fiction. The main character is, you know, this bookish introvert. She works at a bookstore, and all of a sudden she has been raised by a single mom, and her dad was never part of the picture. She doesn't know anything about him. She doesn't even know his name. And all of a sudden she finds out like who her father is, and not only who he is, but that she has this huge extended family, and it kind of like rocks her world. And so she kind of has to navigate that. I read another book by this author last summer, Other People's Houses, and I really enjoyed that as well. So I'm looking forward to that. And then the other thing that I picked up is a cozy mystery. I really love cozy mystery. It's a struggle to find cozies written by Black authors, which is one of the things that I've been looking for the last year probably. And so this popped up. I'm not sure where I saw it pop up, but I was happy that my library had it. So it's A Deadly Inside Scoop by Abby Collette. This is like the intro to a series, I'm assuming. So there is, the main character is, she has just graduated from grad school, and she takes over her family's ice cream shop. I also like this because it takes place in Ohio, and I live in Ohio. And so she is sort of relaunching their ice cream business, and there's, you know, conflict with someone in the town, and then a dead body shows up, and so she's like trying to get to the bottom of it before her family's business is ruined. So these are kind of like my 3 fun, easy reads for the month, I think. The other book that I have been wanting to read is The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. I think it's probably been talked about a lot on YouTube or BookTube, and I just wanted something for the summer. I mean, I'm all for like beach reads in the summer and easy reads for the summer, but it also is really nice to like dig into kind of like a hefty like saga, which is what I'm assuming this is. I read The Night Circus by the same author, and I really enjoyed it, and I guess this is more like magical realism. So there's like the main character is a young man. I believe he's in college, and he sort of stumbles upon this like other world sort of thing, like a secret world that's only revealed to like certain people. So I guess it's going to be like a journey about that, but I've heard good things about it, and I look forward to reading it throughout the month as we're kind of like hanging out by the pool. And then I also picked up Real Life by Brandon Taylor. I'm not sure where. I think I found this on like a book list for like Black authors, or like, you know, books you should read by Black authors. And so I don't really know that much about it or about the author, but it sounds interesting. So it says almost everything about Wallace is at odds with the Midwestern University town where he is working uneasily toward a biochem degree. An introverted young man from Alabama, Black and queer, he has left behind his family without escaping the long shadows of his childhood. For reasons of self-preservation, Wallace has enforced a wary distance even within his own circle of friends. But over the course of a late summer weekend, a series of confrontations with colleagues and an unexpected encounter with an ostensibly straight white classmate conspire to fracture his defense while exposing long hidden currents of hostility and desire within their community. So that sounds really interesting. And I really like books that are like set on college campuses for whatever reason. And then I picked up the Van Apfel Girls Are Gone, which is giving me kind of Virgin Suicides vibes, maybe. I'm not sure, but basically it says Tika Malloy was 11 and 1/6 years old during the long, hot Australian summer of 1992. And a trio of sisters go missing. So it says, did they just run far away from their harsh evangelical parents, or were they taken? While the search for the girls united the small community, the mystery of their disappearance was never solved, and Tika and her older sister Laura have been haunted ever since. Now, years later, she returns home to try to make sense of that strange moment in time. Part mystery, part darkly comic coming of age story. So we'll see. And it's fairly short too. And then the other book that I picked up is How We Disappeared. I've seen this on like best of the year lists too. So I wanted to check it out. So this is Singapore in 1942. As Japanese troops sweep down Malaysia and into Singapore, a village is ransacked, leaving only 2 survivors and 1 tiny child. In a neighboring village, 17-year-old Wang Di is strapped onto the back of a troop carrier and shipped off to a Japanese military brothel where she is forced into sexual slavery as a comfort woman. After 60 years of silence, what she saw and experienced still haunts her. In the year 2000, 12-year-old Kevin is sitting beside his ailing grandmother when he overhears a mumbled confession. He sets out to discover the truth wherever it might lead, setting in motion a chain of events he could have never foreseen. Weaving together 2 timelines and 2 very big secrets, the stunning debut opens a window into a little-known period of history, revealing the strength and bravery shown by numerous women in the face of terrible cruelty. This sounds really intense, but also really, really good. So, How We Disappeared, a novel by Jing Lee. So this was the other book that I picked up to read in July. So yeah, some like intense, kind of more hard-hitting things, and then some little fun summer vacation, even though we're not going on vacation, staycation reads. So that is what I plan on reading this month. If you have a July TBR, let me know in the comments what it is, or if you've read any of the books I plan on reading, let me know what you thought of them. Thanks so much for watching. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, click the subscribe button, and I will see you next time. Bye!